All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Great. Good afternoon and welcome to the ATD webinar on the 2015 Annual College Progress. We're happy you're joining us this afternoon. My name is Mary Harrell. I'm an Associate Director of Programs and Policy at Achieving the Dream, and I work on the annual reflection along with my colleague Melanie Mulvey. With me today on this webinar, I have Carrie Henderson, who is an Associate Director of Programs and Policy at ATD, and she oversees our Leader College programming. So she will walk us through later on the Leader College application process. We also have joining us Heather Gingrich, who is a Senior Program Officer at College Spark, and this webinar is for our College Spark colleges. We're appreciative of the support that College Spark provides to ATD and to the colleges, and so she'll be joining us today. And we also have Darby Kaikenen, who is the Policy Research Associate with the Washington State Board of Community and Technical Colleges. And she will be speaking a little bit later in this webinar about the data component for the annual reflection. Before we get started with our agenda for today, you'll notice on your screen a control panel. So should you have any questions that pop up, whether it's related to technology or questions about the content of the webinar, you can type your question into that box and we will be answering that. We'll be taking questions throughout this session. The first part of the agenda will focus on the annual reflection components and that process. The second part of the webinar is going to focus on the Leader College application and the process that colleges go through for that application. So today we'll start out and we'll talk a little bit about the annual reflection. There are 4 components to this, to the reflection, and so I wanted to spend a few minutes just on each of those components to make sure that you understand the different pieces for it, to answer any questions you might have as they relate to those sections. The annual reflection, this is part of the work of ATD's network. We talk about being a network, and that means that it's a place where colleges can learn quickly and easily about student success interventions, but they also share freely with others in the network and with ATD. So the annual reflection is really an opportunity for colleges to pause for a moment from all the work you are doing to improve student outcomes, to reflect on what has worked for the year and what hasn't worked, and to think about planning for the coming year. So it's an opportunity for the colleges to reflect. It's also a tool that the coaches use to really look at the work that you are doing. And it's also a tool, a resource for ATD, so that we can see the work that colleges are doing and really pull what's working from the colleges and share that across the network. And to notice if there's themes around barriers or common challenges, and to think about the kinds of support that Achieving the Dream can develop to help colleges move past those barriers. So what I thought I would do is go through the 4 components of the annual reflection, and the 4 pieces are: 1, the Principals Assessment Survey; the second piece is what we call the annual reflection narrative. A part of that is the data submission component. And the 4th piece of this annual reflection process is contributing to the interventions showcase. So we're going to spend just a moment on the principal assessment. And as you'll recall, this is a tool that we provide to the colleges every year. It's based on the 5 principles, ATD's 5 principles around institutional change. So around the quality of leadership, around student success, how broadly engaged those in the college are around the student success initiatives, equity, around building a system of continuous improvement, and the final piece is around building cultures of evidence. And this is a tool that for each of those 5 principles, we have a lot of different areas under each of those on which colleges can measure their progress. And so a couple of weeks ago, your core team leaders should have received an email from ATD that provided a link for your college to send out this assessment widely across your college campus. It's for your institute. That link is for your institution only, and you can share that with faculty, with staff, administrators, those in student affairs, those across the faculty disciplines, leadership at your college campus, community partners. And the idea is to have all of these stakeholders take this assessment so that you, as the college, can then aggregate the results and look at the progress that you all have made along the 5 principles. Your core team leaders will have also this year, we're doing something a little bit different. They should have also received a link so that they can access a summary report of all the results of the principal assessment survey. So this will allow your college to look at the results real time. So if you've already shared this link with stakeholders, you can log on and look at the results so far. It will allow you to disaggregate the results based on faculty roles if you want. But this will be a tool that you will use then as you go to fill out your annual reflection. We recommend, although the deadline is totally up to the colleges, we recommend that you try to receive all the results by April 17th because this will give you plenty of time as the core team to think about the results and use those results as you actually write the annual reflection narrative. So the next piece of the annual reflection then is really it's what we call the narrative. And your core team will have received an email that has a link to the ATD website. All of this will be completed on the Qualtrics platform that we have. But you also can access Word templates just to use sort of as a guide as you go through this. There are several sections in the annual reflection narrative, but we have streamlined it this past year too. We've heard a lot of feedback from the colleges, so we've really tried to streamline it to gather the most important information to make sure it's not repetitive. So hopefully this year you will find this is it's a little faster completion for you. We ask you in terms of the annual reflection that it's not just one person writing this, that you really sit down either as a core team or others on your campus to think about this together. We ask you to complete a short progress statement, and this is a general statement on the student success work that you're doing, what's worked, what hasn't worked, where are the areas where you might need more technical assistance. We then ask you to go to reflect on the results from your principal assessment survey. And so for each one, we ask you to really think about what's worked, and particularly about for the areas where perhaps you did not see any progress or wanted to see more progress but didn't, but think about then how you're going to address that in the coming year. We then have you reflect on some of the student success data that you all have, and I'll ask Darby to talk about that in a moment. The next piece of the annual reflection narrative itself is really around setting the goals for the following year, thinking about 2 or 3 key priorities for the following year around student success, and also the types of resources, technical assistance resources, you would need in order to implement your priorities. As part of the annual reflection, one of the big pieces is around the data submission. For ATD, we work with our colleges to build cultures of evidence, to really be looking at student outcomes throughout the year. And so the data submission is a way for the colleges to collect data on what's happening to the students around key student success areas, key student success metrics, and to reflect on that. And so I wanted to turn the microphone over to Darby to walk through for the College Spark colleges some of the expectations around the data collection. Darby?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thanks, Mary. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and if we want to go back to the previous slide where it kind of goes over, the data submission. So I'm going to talk through the 2 different components of the report that involve data. The first one, which is essentially in section 4, called the Student Success Data Trends. This is all information that's aimed at looking at the institutional level progress for the colleges. And so the general process that most of you, those of you who are not coming into this annual reflection process for the first time, for most of you this is the same process that you used last year. The measures that are included are all included in our ATD data tool, which was developed to help everybody with this process. The measures that you're going to look at are, again, first year college level points per student, the percent of students earning their quant point within 2 years, and because this is a 2-year measure, this is actually the first year that that data will be available within your cohorts. Highest momentum as of the end of 1 year, highest momentum as the end of 2 years, again, just now available for you in for the 2014 year, and fall to winter, fall to spring, and fall to fall retention. So the measures are essentially the same. You're also going to disaggregate into gender, race, ethnicity, and Pell status. And for this year, you're going to compare the outcomes for the 2012 and 2013 cohorts. And then also within this section is a series of questions about the data, and there's some information about how you should organize it into charts in order to make it easier to see your findings. So I'll reiterate that this is all information that is in the ATD evaluation tool, but the part that's a little bit tricky is that this information is all going to have to be redone from the prior year using the tool from this year, and that's because the metrics have changed in the tool. All of you know that we did a revision of SAI a couple years ago now, but this past academic year in 13-14 was the first time in which we went through and officially retired the old system. So the data tool that you used last year for this same section of information, that information is not comparable to the information that's in the data tool this year. It's most readily available or observable in college level points per student. We have more college level points now in the revised system. And the other place where it is pretty significantly different is in the highest momentum fields, because we have the addition of the 45 credit point, and college ready math and English are split out a little more distinctively in this version of the tool. So I really want to make sure to reiterate that you need to use the most updated tool in order to complete this particular section. So are there questions about that portion before I move on to the direct service interventions part?
Darby, I haven't seen anything pop up, so we'll keep monitoring, and maybe we can move on to the next section.
Okay. Okay, so on the next slide, we'll talk about the direct service interventions. So the previous section, again, is really aimed at looking at institutional level progress, so not necessarily specific to the interventions that you have in place, but just trying to get a sense of how the needle's moving for everyone. In this section, this is really designed to just focus on those student populations who have gone through one of your interventions. So same format that you went through last year, where you had the baseline information that you pulled together in your first annual reflection report, just to say what do students look like right now today as far as how far they're getting along that momentum timeline. And then each subsequent year, you would continue to take a look at the students in those interventions and track along their highest momentum as of the end of that year. So again, unfortunately, this is another section that will have to be rebased because of the change to the metrics. So in your first reflection report for those 2011 cohort colleges, you had put baseline data in there, and last year you had put in the 12-13 data. That all will need to be recalculated using the revised metrics. You can still use the in the actual report, and the annual reflection report, it gives you the name of the field, the highest momentum field that you'll use. And so you can still use that, but again, it does need to be redone using the revised metrics, because there's a pretty significant change in what those percentages would look like. So just as a reminder, and for those of you who are new and are doing this for the first time, an example of how this differs is if you have, for example, a pre-college math acceleration intervention. in the baseline year, so whatever year prior to first implementing that intervention, you would take all of the students in the given year who would have been impacted by that intervention. So not just a new and fall start cohort, but all pre-college math students, for example. And then you would link into the SA Revised database, and at the end of that year, take a look at all of their highest momentum points. And remember, this is a summary field that looks along that continuum, and as far down that row is as the student got, they're only counted once. If they got their quant point, they're going to be counted in the quant point. Even if they also got 15, 30, and 45 credits, the quant point is their highest momentum, so that's where they will show up. So you'll want to do that for the baseline year, and then again for all pre-college math students in 12-13, and then for this last year's worth of data, all pre-college math students for 13-14. And essentially what the idea is here is looking to see that compared to that baseline year, depending on the intervention that you have, are students generally getting farther along down that line? Does the intervention seem to be having some impact at a greater percentage of those students reaching the quant point, for example? Okay, so any questions on the direct service interventions?
We haven't had anything pop up. I just want to remind everyone that if you do have a question on the control panel, you can type it into the question box toward the bottom of the control panel and hit send, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. So thank you, Darby, and we'll move on, and we'll before we finish with the annual reflection process here, we'll take some more questions as well. So there's more opportunities for questions. So the final part of the ATD annual reflection process is around the intervention showcase, and a lot of what you will have completed for the data submission around the interventions you can use for the intervention showcase. This is ATD's online resource that captures student success interventions across the network. And so we ask every college that's part of the network annually to update interventions they've put into this resource and to add in new interventions that they have been trying at their colleges. This is a database that is open to the network, and it's a great resource for colleges to look through different areas. So if they're doing interventions around student advising or early alert systems, dev ed, mentoring, they can look up interventions to see what colleges are doing, and it's you can filter results depending on the college size. If you're looking for interventions at a particular college size, in terms of the geographic area, if you're particularly interested in interventions in rural colleges. So it's a very searchable resource, and we ask our network every year as part of the annual reflection process to contribute to it. In May, you will be getting, or in April, actually, mid-April, you will be getting an email from ATD. The core team leaders will be receiving this so that you can update the intervention showcase. You'll be able to go in online to the ATD website to update the showcase. And we'll just move on to the next slide. This is what it looks like on our website. And you'll see on the right-hand side all the ways that you can filter the interventions so that you can really pinpoint those interventions that are going to be most relevant to your institution. And if we go to the next slide here, you'll see that when you are inputting the data, this is the kind of information that we are looking for. This is not meant to be a lot of writing for you. We just want short descriptions of the interventions, the target populations you're trying to reach with these interventions, and in terms of the content area that these interventions are focused on. So again, be looking for that email from ATD in mid-April, and it'll be going to core team leaders. So at this time, this concludes the portion about the annual reflection process. We're going to move on to the Leader College application process in just a minute. Are there any questions about the annual reflection process, whether around the principals assessment, the annual reflection narrative, the data submission, or the intervention showcase? I'm just going to pause for a moment. Okay. We have one. Let's see. Okay. We've gotten a couple of questions about is the webinar going to be recorded, and we are recording it, so we will be posting this up on the ATD website, and you'll be able to access this as you start your in reflection. Okay. Great. And it looks like we have one question that will be coming in. I'll give it just a moment to come in. Okay. Well, we will. So we'll keep going on this webinar, and so as the questions come in, we'll make sure that we take them at the end of the hour. So I'm going to turn the mic over to my colleague Carrie Henderson, who oversees our Leader College application. Oh, just a moment. The question came in. So here's the question, Darby. This one is for you. It says, for the highest momentum point analysis, we are comparing the entire population with the intervention participants included to the baseline rather than doing a comparison group analysis. Is this correct?
Okay. Is that referencing the direct service intervention?
Yes. So yeah. So it's for the highest momentum point analysis, we are comparing the entire population with the intervention participants included to the baseline rather than doing a comparison group analysis. Is this a correct understanding?
Yes. For the direct service interventions, it is only students who were actually touched by the intervention that are in that.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I'm going to turn this over to Carrie now to go through the Leader College application. And we will, and as we get more questions in, we will answer them after Carrie finishes walking us through the Leader College application.
Great. Thank you, Mary. And welcome, everyone. I'm excited to talk with you about the Leader College application process. Over the next few minutes, we will talk about what is a Leader College and what does it take to become one. What do we look for in terms of the application? We have criteria for practice and performance, and I'll talk a little bit about the specific application requirements, and we will leave time at the end for questions and answers about not only the Leader College application, but also questions you might have about the annual reflection process. In terms of eligibility, all Achieving the Dream institutions that have completed their initial planning year may apply for Leader College status. This is a designation that is awarded for 3-year cycles, and so once institutions are named a Leader College, they maintain that designation for 3 years, and after 3 years, they must undergo a recertification process to continue holding their Leader College status. There is no cost to apply for or to be a Leader College, but the institution must be active in the Achieving the Dream network to retain Leader College status. In terms of the benefits of being a Leader College, the primary benefit that many colleges often talk about is the opportunity to participate in certain competitive grant opportunities. And so some of our competitive free grant programs look only for Leader College applicants, and so this is a good designation to have when it comes time to participate in these activities. Leader Colleges are also recognized as sources of expert advice. We look to them at DREAM and at other events, as well as ATD publications, to talk about promising practices as well as lessons learned. Leader Colleges are also featured in Achieving the Dream promotional and technical assistance materials. We like to highlight the excellent work that they do. And Leader Colleges are also given the opportunity to brand themselves as Leader College institutions. We have a logo here that you'll see. And we also have an editorial guide for institutions that get this designation so they can use it on their website and their email signatures and in other places as needed. Responsibilities of being a Leader College. We do have responsibilities that we request for these Leader Colleges. We look to them to advocate for the principles of Achieving the Dream. Mary has already talked about what those principles are. And so we often look to our Leader Colleges to embody those principles in practice. We often ask our institutions to support other HB institutions and create these communities of learners. So the idea is that leader colleges are learning from other institutions in the network and sharing what they have learned. This goes along with assisting with the dissemination of lessons and promising practices. This could be through things like the intervention showcase, as Mary has talked about, or presentations at DREAM and other conferences. We also ask our leader colleges to support efforts to build a policy environment in their state and nationally, and to continue to pursue ATD's model for continuous improvement and success. And equity and excellence are key components and principles of achieving the dream, and so we ask our leader colleges to focus on those principles as well. In terms of the criteria for performance, in the application we have 3 sections. The first is related to student success data. The second is related to data on an intervention. And the third is a narrative focused on a college's ability to lead. And so in terms of the student success data, we ask all applicants to submit data on one SAI or ATD student success measure. And these data, we need to have 4 years of data. So there's 1 baseline year plus 3 additional years of data. And ideally, we would like to see an upward trend in these data. And if there's not an upward trend in 1 year, and we understand that there are fluctuations, that would need to be something that is explained in the narrative component. The second piece is related to intervention and initiatives that college attributes to its success. And so here we use a scaling framework from the More to Most guide. And so what we're looking for is institutions to promote interventions that materially improve success for more, if not most, of its students. And so we define some as less than 25%, more as 26 to 60%, and most at 60 to 100%. And so what we're asking you to do here is to select an intervention and also talk about how you're scaling it so it reaches most of its student population. And the last piece is related to an ability to lead. So how has your institution shared its lessons learned and interacted with other colleges in your state or in your region or even nationally? And how do you plan to lead as an ATD leader college? That's something we'd like to know. In terms of the criteria for practice, the Leader College application is an addendum to the annual reflection. And so that's one piece of it. We'll be looking at the college annual reflection narrative to see how your college has reflected on its past year. Your coaches will all complete a coach principles assessment. This isn't something that you will need to do, but it is something where we do have minimums for some criteria, and we outline what those are in the application. And so, as I said, the Leader College application is an addendum to the annual reflection. I encourage you to go to our website. We do have all of the requirements there. And at this time, we will open it up for questions, either about the Leader College process or about annual reflection in general.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. So we have gotten one question in, and it's back to the annual reflection. So Darby, this will be another one for you. The question is, how bound are we to the SAI points named for each direct intervention? Can we use other points? And what are we to say if we haven't targeted a particular SAI point?
Okay, so direct service intervention. So is this referring to the section prior where it says which student achievement measure is this intervention designed to affect? I'm guessing that's what it's referencing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So one thing that I would say is this framework behind the Student Achievement Initiative is based on the idea of milestones of student progression. So one answer would be it's not necessarily being strictly tied to the point itself to say, you know, first 15 college credits, for example. What that point really represents is first year progression. You know, that's what it's a proxy for that. So I think that you can find any of these points will fit in what it is that you're already doing. If what you're focused on is retention, I would say use the first 15 or the first 30. If what you're focused on is getting students through pre-college math and into college math, that's one area where the SAI points are actually pretty strong, because they're only awarded when they complete pre-college, not just for any class that they complete, but after they've hit the highest level. And then we do have points built in that say the student has also moved on and completed the associated college level course. So I think that there's enough flexibility in there that you should be able to make it work. Does that help?
Great, thank you, Darby. So, great. Well, that looks like that's all the questions that we have. So I want to remind everyone that we will be recording this webinar, and so we will be sure to get this out to you in the next few days so that you can reference it as you fill out your annual reflection, the Leader College application. I've posted up on the webinar right now contact information for all of us who are on the webinar right now. I encourage you to be in touch with us if you have any questions or any feedback on the annual reflection, the Leader College application. We welcome that feedback. So with that, I want to say thank you to my colleagues Carrie, Heather, and Darby for joining me today on the webinar. And we look forward to being in touch with you over the next few months as you work on the annual reflections. So thank you for joining us, and I hope you have a good rest of the afternoon.